All right, so I will call to order the
Not yet,
finance.
right.
Oh,
Sorry, it's still buffering on my end.
okay.
Okay, now you're live.
All right, so I will call to order the Finance Committee meeting of March 8th, 2021, and happy International Women's Day to all the amazing women in San Ramon. Um, Item number 2, public comment. Christina, do you need to say anything? Do
Before
we
we
have?
go to public comment, let me go ahead and just read the meeting procedures and conduct roll call as well. So the procedures adopted for this meeting meet or exceed the standards set forth in Governor Gavin Newsom's Order N-25-20, which allows public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. At this time, I will conduct roll call and ask for the chair to recognize me afterwards to confirm certain matters for the record. Vice Chair Perkins?
Here.
And Chair Barr?
Here.
Thank you.
And now back to you, Christina.
Thank you. Based on the responses to roll call, the record should reflect that all committee members can hear the proceedings clearly.
Yes.
If there are no objections, the record will further reflect that each committee member believes, based on voice or facial recognition or otherwise, that the persons representing themselves to be committee members are in fact committee members.
Yes.
Seeing no objection, I will turn the meeting back over to the chair with a reminder that all votes must be taken by roll call.
Thank you. Item number 2, public comment. Do we have any public comment?
For those in the audience, I would like to comment on items not on the agenda. Please use the raise your hand button at this time. It does not appear that we have any requests to speak.
All right, then we can move on to item number 3, approval of minutes. In front of us, you move. All right. Scott, you approve. I'll second.
Let me just go through. Vice Chair Perkins?
Aye.
And Chair Zafar?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Unfinished business, we have none. And then item number 5, we have new business. 5.1 is allocation of affordable housing funds for purchase, acquisition of, and resale of 4704 Norris Canyon Road, Unit 202, an existing affordable housing unit in the Park Central Subdivision. Staff report by Cindy Yee, Senior Planner. Thank you, Cindy.
Hi, good evening or afternoon, late afternoon. I'm here this afternoon to present a staff report on a unique opportunity that the City of San Ramon has in front of us. Unit 4704 Norris Canyon Road, number 202, is a moderate income restricted unit that was sold in 2014 by KB Homes. That moderate income unit has a 20-year affordability term that started in 2014 and would set to be expired in 2034. The city received notice in January of this year that the current property owner intends to sell the 3-bedroom condominium unit. And based on the affordable housing agreement, the city has the first right of purchase of any affordable units that are being offered for resale. Based on the affordable housing agreement that's recorded on the property, the current affordable price of the unit is set at $527,000, $527,737. Per the affordable housing agreement, the city, if the city does not purchase the unit would then have to be resold to another moderate income household, and the affordability term would continue through 2034. So after consideration of the affordable housing agreement as well as the affordable housing fund, staff is recommending the purchase of the affordable housing unit. Ultimately, by purchasing this unit, the city would have the opportunity to amend the affordable housing agreement that would then extend the affordability term. Rather than having it expire in 2034, the city could dictate when and if this unit would actually expire. The city would recommend, if we were to purchase it, that we would maintain a affordable unit in perpetuity and not have the unit have a set term for expiration. The unit would also be recommended to be amended from a moderate income unit to a unit that would be affordable to a low income household. And ultimately, by making these changes to the unit, the city would be able to count this unit towards our regional housing needs allocation and allow the unit to count as a low-income unit towards our regional need. The city's requested budget for the purchase and acquisition of this would be the $530,000 to purchase the unit, along with a budget of approximately $59,000 to cover any closing costs and carrying costs for the term of when the city were to be marketing it for resale. And then upon the sale of the unit to a low-income household, $341,000 would be returned back to the housing fund. So in total, the city would anticipate utilizing about $189,000 from the Affordable Housing Fund to create this long-term affordable unit that would otherwise revert back to market rate in about 13 and a half years. And so the request this afternoon for the Finance Committee is to consider the utilization of the $189,000 from the Housing Fund to create this new low-income unit. And the recommendation would then go to the City Council for their authorization, should the Finance Committee support the recommendation.
Councilmember Perkins, Vice Mayor Perkins, do you have any questions for Cindy?
Yeah, I think it's a fabulous idea. Question: does the housing authority get involved in this?
No, so the housing authority is separate from this process. The housing funds are funds that are within the city of San Ramon's housing, within our jurisdiction. So that budget would come from the Affordable Housing Fund, and it's separate from the housing authority. To administer the sale and purchase of the unit, we would be using the city's housing program administrator as a consultant to help with the sale and the purchase of the unit, but this would be a separate decision from the housing authority.
Okay. What is the balance in our housing fund?
As of the current available cash balance in the housing fund right now, it's 2.8 or almost $2.9 million.
For the staff report going to the council, could you put that somewhere in the fiscal implications? Put the current balance. It would make a difference. Let's say we only had $612,000 and we're going to spend $504. If we didn't have much money in the balance, then it might adjust our thinking a little bit. But since we have a very substantial balance, consuming almost $200,000 of it for this purpose seems like a very good thing to do.
Yeah, Cindy, I think you do have it in the staff report, but if you can.
I read the staff report and I don't remember where
It's the last paragraph on packet page 6, but I can certainly highlight that in the fiscal. Fiscal.
Oh, it is. Okay. Yep. It's there. Okay. Thank you.
So Cindy, have we ever done anything like this before? Or I'm just curious how this process works.
No, it's actually the first opportunity that the city's had to repurchase a unit. And we don't have very many for sale units actually currently in the city. We are in the process right now of the sale of the 27 units at the preserve. But this is really the first opportunity that the city's had for a resale option. And what's interesting about this particular subdivision is that in 2014 at the time, because the city didn't have an inclusionary ordinance, all of the terms were up to negotiation. And at the time, because we didn't have the ordinance in place, that was why we had set a 20-year agreement at that point in time, because it was up to negotiation. And if we remember in 2012, when this was originally being constructed, there was a bit of a downturn in the housing market, and it was the best terms that we could get at the time. But given the opportunity now that we can extend the term of the unit, it's a great opportunity for the city to create this long-term option. And then also in consultation with the State Housing and Community Development Department, they have identified that if the city were to actively preserve such units that could be in jeopardy of returning to market rate, that we would be able to get the option of counting it towards our regional housing needs. And so given that circumstance that we'll be able to get credit for this unit, it makes it, you know, a much easier decision to try to pursue in this situation.
Well, thank you for that. And will it go through that same process that those 27 units are going, like a lottery or something, if you put it up, or?
So that's the expectation, is that more than likely we will get a good amount of interest in this unit because it is going to be priced at that lower rate. And a few units are available in that price range, we'll probably get quite a bit of interest in the purchase of the unit. And so we will be setting up another lottery where people would put their, would register to purchase the unit, and then we would set up a system where it would be a random lottery to find the best, most qualified person, and then work down on that list.
I think Vice Mayor Perkins had a question.
How many units are in this development that are similar, have similar restrictions?
So as of right now, there's 2 additional units that are moderate income that have the potential for resale.
Okay, in the first paragraph, it says 12 for sale moderate income units.
Right. So at the time that the units were offered for sale, there was a clause in KB's agreement that said that if the units were not sold within 4 months to a qualified buyer, that they could have the option to sell the unit at market rate, and they would give the difference between the price of the market rate unit and the moderate income unit, and that would go towards our housing fund. And so because of the way that the housing market was in 2014, where moderate income units were priced at the same rate as market rate units, they had a very difficult time in selling those units. So after 4 months, 5 months of trying to resell those units at moderate rate, there was a clause in the affordable housing agreement that said that if KB was unsuccessful in selling those units, that they would pay the difference between what was the unit that was sold and put that money into the housing fund. And so the circumstances in 2014, only 3 units ended up with affordable housing agreements and sold to a moderate income household.
Okay, very helpful. The affordable units and the preserve, what is the timeline on those?
In the preserve, those are 50-year terms.
Okay. Does the city have the opportunity to do the same thing, buy them and then put them into perpetuity?
We do. So if any of those units were to be resold within those 50 years, the city does have the first right of purchase on those units as well.
Okay. I'm sorry, do you need a motion on this or just consensus?
Do we need a motion,
Do we
Christina, or do we
just
just
need a
need
motion on
we
this?
need to recommend?
Just move it to the council.
Yeah, I believe we would just need a recommendation to move it to the council for full council's consideration.
I'll move we move this subject to the full council for approval with a recommendation from the finance committee for approval.
Scott, before we did, I just had one more questions for Christina. Sorry, from Cindy. So how did we determine, and somebody asked me about it and I wasn't sure how we determine the cost of what is considered low income housing or moderate income housing. So is there a formula that is based on income and we determine the market price of something like this?
Yes. So every affordable housing agreement, if it's a for sale project, will have the formula of how the unit price is calculated in that affordable housing agreement. So at the time that the unit was built by KB, there was a formula that's recorded on the title. And so when the city goes to purchase this unit, we use the formula that's in the affordable housing agreement for this specific subdivision. Because the city is going to essentially rewrite that resale agreement so that it maintains in perpetuity for a low income unit, we will have to restructure the resale agreement and put in those new terms and identify the formula that we would use. But the formula generally is the same across the board, depending on if it's low or very low or moderate income. It's a percentage of how much one of those households could afford when you add mortgage costs and housing costs. So we include HOA dues, property taxes, utility costs in that budget. And we say the price of the unit on a monthly basis cannot exceed this amount when you add mortgage and other housing costs. And that will dictate the maximum price that the unit can be set for resale. And it would have to be affordable to income levels based on Contra Costa County's area median income.
So would that be something like 40% of that income bracket or something like that, or?
So with moderate income, it's typically no more than 35% of your income is allocated towards total housing costs. And so your mortgage plus taxes plus HOA dues should not exceed 35%. For a low income household, it's actually set at 30%. So it's just a little lower than that because moderate income households, it's based on what HUD identifies as the maximum for housing costs. So the price of the unit will actually go down because it's going to be sold to a lower income household.
Well, thank you so much. That was very helpful. And a few people have asked me about that question and I wasn't quite sure. So I'm like, next time I'll check with Cindy. So I think with that, I think Vice Mayor Perkins already recommended that we move this to council, and I second. Do we need a vote on this, Christina? Or
Yeah, let's just get a vote. Vice Mayor Perkins
Yes.
and Chair Zafar.
yes?
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 5.2, appropriation of $76,000 from Fund 201, planning cost recovery fees to fund a contract with RRM Design Group for professional architectural services to develop pre-approved building permit plan sets for the new pre-approved accessory dwelling unit program. Staff report by Lauren Barr, Planning Division Manager. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Actually, you summarized it very well in your introduction. We have a program that we're moving forward with to create pre-approved accessory dwelling unit plans to help residents who wish to pursue ADUs as an option for their properties. And so we went out with an RFP for an architectural firm to provide those services. And we're getting ready to award a contract for that. Stepping back about a year, we included this project as part of our SB2 grant application. And so we were awarded funds from the state for this program. But the way that the funds get distributed from the state, it's a reimbursement. And so we need to basically put the money up front for the contract, and then we will reimburse it as it's billed to us. And so what we're requesting now is the appropriation of $76,000 to cover that contract. And those fees will be returned to the fund following completion of the work by RRM. So with that, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yes. What is the output, or what are we going to get when they're done? When we pay them $76,000 for this, what are we going to get?
Okay, so we're going to get 3 sets of pre-approved plans. And so what these plans are, will have all the architectural details, structural, energy calculations. So basically they'll be ready to go for residents to apply for building permits. And again, it's to streamline the process so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel every time they want to do one of these things.
Okay, so you get a set of architectural plans, and I assume that they are, okay, they're 25 feet by 25 feet or something like that. Is that correct? You're going to get?
There'll be whatever the specific dimensions are based on the unit size and the configuration. The designs will vary a little bit based on different types of footprints. Not every situation is identical in the community. Yes. So we need a little bit of variety in terms of floor plans, but the general consensus is that by creating these standard plans, it gives residents an option to pursue that rather than having to hire someone to do the plans for them to get through the building process.
Okay, so you get a set of plans. One set is 20 by 35. Another set is 25 by 25. Is that kind of what we're doing here? Is we're getting, and that'll include a floor plan that'll have a kitchen, bedroom.
Correct. Yeah, there'll be obviously different finishes, details, that sort of thing that are available. But yes, there'll be a basic floor plan. And again, there'll be some choice between the 3 plans, but it's not a free-for-all. You don't get to do whatever you want with these plans. They are pre-designed. So obviously they would have to work with the property you have. If they don't, then this might not be the best opportunity for someone to use them.
Okay, so these 3 sets of plans will only work if they work. I mean, if your property happens to have access and space and setbacks and all the other things.
Yeah, it won't work in every situation, but the idea is to try and design something that works for a typical lot in San Ramon and provide some options and opportunities for residents to use these things.
Okay.
So Lauren, what's going to happen if somebody wants to build these? Does it, they just come in, we say, if you use this blueprint, is it a cost saving for them?
Most certainly, it'll be much more streamlined in terms of time. We're going to have them pre-reviewed for plan check from the building department. So again, if they follow the plans and don't alter them significantly, they're pretty much ready to go. So there will be a cost savings on our side. What's not covered in this is utility connections, things like that. Those types of things would continue to be subject to whatever fees the various agencies charge for those connections. That's beyond our control, but we can at least streamline our side of the process for them.
I can see value in this. I added 300 and some square feet to the back of my house, and we went back and forth a couple of times because of shear walls, because of foundations. I mean, I guarantee you that is the safest part of San Ramon right now in an earthquake. We've got, 3-foot wall, and then I've got 18-inch diameter holes that are 6 foot deep with 3 rebars per hole, spaced every 3 feet. My God, this is the safest place in San Ramon in an earthquake. And so I assume that these plans will meet the city standards for foundations and all the other things.
Yeah, they'll be basically ready for permit issuance. Will have been plan checked and reviewed. And so, standards continue to evolve, energy standards keep changing. And so this will give people a leg up in terms of creating ADUs and maybe hopefully eliminate some of the barriers that people seem to have toward moving forward with a project.
Now, ADUs in themselves aren't affordable unless the property owner makes a covenant and all the other things that go with affordable units. Is that right?
That's correct. But they are units for the purposes of our reporting to the state. But yeah, unless they're deed restricted, they don't count for
They
affordability.
won't count in the 15%, but they'll count in the 85%.
Correct.
Okay.
So Lauren, has RRM done this for any other city that you know of?
They have. We looked at a number of consultants that have worked for different jurisdictions throughout the state, and so we selected this consultant because we frankly liked their portfolio and the work that they did, and their pricing was competitive with what our grant application was for, and so we're going to go ahead and utilize them. The one thing that I think it's important to understand is that the architect themselves is giving up control over their intellectual property as part of this. And so, they're still the designer, but yet we're going to be able to reproduce these plans for use by the public at large. And so that does, essentially add a bit of a premium for a designer wanting to do this, because again, they're losing control.
I'm super excited about this. I think it's going to be such an amazing service, and just the service that the city can offer with the plans and everything, and just the speed at which people can develop those ADUs, and the fact that this does count towards our housing numbers is a huge advantage. If I talk to Senator Wachowski, who's a big proponent of ADUs, he's like, any questions, just come and talk to me. The other thing is about the prefab homes. Are they different than, they would be a different ballgame, right? If somebody wanted to bring a prefab home, and how does that work?
Well, there's a couple of different ways that they can work. I mean, you have manufactured homes that are listed products that have been tested and gone through the whole process of being certified. And then it's really just about how they're anchored. That's the extent of, and utility connections. This is not that. And so the difficulty when you have, you've heard about this technology with, laser printed, essentially, homes that are being created. And so I don't know that they've gone through the effort to have it all certified and done. So there may be some justification and additional documentation that they would need to provide in order to get those types of products essentially permitted and issued. And so this is more conventional than some of those pre-manufactured situations, but at the same time, I could also see certain contractors taking this on as a specialty if they know how to build them. So.
And I guess another question I had was, how do we make sure that we maximize the benefit? So do we take an average of, the lot size in San Ramon, and how do you kind of plan to have those three blueprints?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously have certain criteria that we're allowed to utilize from the standpoint of setbacks and things like that are prescribed by state law. And so then we can basically sort of reverse engineer it into some of those situations. Granted, we're not going to know if somebody has a, accessory structure that's already there, swimming pool, whatever it is. That's hard to account for. So we're going to have to do a somewhat generic approach to it. and again, provide some different alternatives in terms of design, and hopefully that'll work for the majority of the properties. I think the biggest constraint would be on the smaller single family properties. Obviously, a larger property has more flexibility. They also can go with larger ADUs, in which case they may not want to use one of these standard ones if there's something more that they could do.
And could they take one of these standards and add on and then come back to the city for approval? So that shortens somewhat of the time as well,
If they
right?
did that, they'd then have to reopen up the plan check process and justify the work. So and you might get into some issues again about proprietary property or intellectual property, I should say, from the architect, because you're mixing and matching different products. So I'm not certain of the liability aspect of that yet, but that's something we'll look into.
Okay, thank you. Scott?
Yeah, are we going to charge residents anything at all for these plans?
My understanding is we were not going to charge anything for the plans. They will still need permits because they'll be doing inspections, but the actual plans themselves would be free.
Okay, so somebody can walk in and say, yeah, give me all three. They take them home and they, sit there and talk about which one of the three they want. And then they want to go with plan B, but they want to add 10 feet to it.
Well, they're opening the door to have it plan checked at that point.
Okay.
But they can learn a lot from the standard detailing that's been provided.
Yeah. Oh, heavens, yeah. I mean, particularly when it comes to shear walls and how it's attached and all the foundation issues and all those kinds of things. Yes.
Yeah, but it's not quite as straightforward as that. There are ratios and relationships between dimensions that may not work with an extension. So again, it would be plan checked, and it's something that they would definitely have a step up in terms of their process.
I'm a little concerned that, we're, charging zero. So anybody can walk in and get a set. I don't know that a nominal fee might be appropriate, but, for somebody to walk in and get 3 sets of plans and.
Well, I would
We're
say
also
that,
adding to our housing, right, inventory, which if we don't have more people building ADUs, then we're going to have to find ways to build in the city. So
Example,
I see that as an advantage.
you charge $50 per set. For somebody who's actually going to build an ADU, $50 is nothing. But what it does is it might keep somebody from, just coming in, taking the plans, and then walking off and using them for something, in another state, another county, another place, that doesn't benefit San Ramon. And we've paid money to have these developed. It's just a thought that maybe charging $5 or $50 per set would at least discourage the the person just walks in and says, yeah, give me all three.
I would just add, though, that this is being funded by a state grant that's intended to encourage affordable housing. And
Okay.
so it may not align with some of the policies that around the grant application. Again, it's,
Okay.
we're asking for the appropriation to pre-fund it, but it's actually being funded by the grant. So I think we would be limited in our ability to recover fees off of that.
Okay.
I think it's a great idea. So do we vote on this again, Christina? To send it to council now? Is that where it goes, or?
Yes.
I would, yes.
I'll move agenda item 5.2.
And I can second?
Vice Mayor Perkins
Yes.
and Chair Zafar.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
All right, on to agenda item number 5.3, fee schedule proposed changes fiscal year 2021, 2022. Staff report by Christina Franco, City Clerk.
Good evening. So before you is our yearly update to the city's fees and charges. Each department does provide their updates. We bring this fee resolution to you at this time because we do have to bring it early in the process because fees cannot be adopted or go into effect for 60 days once approved by the City Council. Our current timeline puts us right up to that deadline for the July 1st, 2021 effective date. So today I have staff present, so we're looking for any questions or clarifications that the Finance Committee may have, and we're available to help provide any clarification you need.
I think we've gone through this process before, so.
Yeah, it's the same process each year, just fees depending on which department is changing, adding, or deleting fees.
Yeah, I've read through the staff reports, so I have a good understanding of the fee increase requests. My general philosophy is I much prefer seeing small increases on an annual basis than large increases, every 5 or 7 years. I think that it kind of shocks the user a little bit too much and inappropriate. So I appreciate the fact that I'm seeing lots of small fee increases, 3% here, $5 there, that kind of stuff. So I'll move we adopt 5.3 unless there's other discussion.
Yeah, no, I'm good with it. I think it seems fair enough, just with the general pricing of everything going up as well and the maintenance cost for us. So I agree with Vice Mayor Perkins.
Okay.
I'll move 5.3.
I can second.
Vice Mayor Perkins
Yes.
and Chair Zafar.
Yes.
Thank you.
Agenda item 5.4, proposed amendments to the statement of the General Fund Reserve Policy. Staff report by Eva Phelps, Administrative Service Director.
Good evening. This is an amendment that I wanted to bring forward to the Finance Committee to just do some little cleanup. Last June, the City Council approved the amendments to the reserve policy that included some recommendations from management partners. They did that analysis, and we incorporated 4 of the recommendations in the policy. However, the other 2 were items to include in our CAFR, and that was to designate some of the funds to either assigned or either, committed. So we were thinking we can do that when we were completing and finalizing our CAFR. However, it requires that language is either in the policy or in the resolution. So here I'm bringing forward to you to include it in the policy because the policy is actually the exhibit to the resolution. So we want to add in the policy that we will reallocate $10.7 million in unassigned general fund reserves to the committed designation as identified to address future revenue stabilization concerns. And we would also reallocate $4 million in the unassigned general fund reserves to the assigned designation. Any questions with that? So this is just really to make sure it can go into our CAFR, and it requires approval by City Council.
No, this has already been under discussion by the council and approved by the council. So this is just bringing some of our documentation up to date to our current.
That's correct.
Policy.
So Scott, do you want to move it to?
I'll move 5.4.
All right, and I can second.
Vice Mayor Perkins
Yes.
and Chair Zafar.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Next item is committee member comments. Scott, do you have any comments you want to share?
No, but it'll be interesting to see, and I'm really I'm hopeful that Joe and Ava can make a presentation after the president signs the, what is it called, the American Relief Fund, whatever that.
Recovery?
What's that?
I think, is it Recovery Fund?
Yeah, American Recovery Fund. Thank you. I'm looking forward to a presentation on how that affects San Ramon. What are the strings attached? What can we, what is the expectation in terms of total revenue? And how can that money be used? And when does it have to be used? And I'm looking forward to getting something on that. Stephen, looked like you had something you had to say on that.
No, I was just anticipating questions, but yes, it's in the House right now for signature and then off to the president. At one point, it looked like they were diverting 10 billion away from the local cities funds, which would have been about an $800,000 hit to what we were receiving. The Senate Democrats that were holding out for that are all former governors, and that 10 billion went towards state grants for local roads and other projects. But the very last amendment at the very last minute during their vote-o-rama the other night, they brought back in $10 billion to make up for that shortfall. So we will be able to apply for grants through that 10 billion going to the states, but also we're getting the 10 billion back. So it's making us whole from the original number. So it's just a lot of things happening.
Yeah, the original number was, last I read, was on the order of $14 million potentially.
14 is the floor and 17 is the ceiling, depending on the final calculation. So there's still a lot of action going on, and they're trying to figure out what happened at the last minute once these bills are approved, and we'll get all the rules for spending. But it does look like we will be getting 2 allocations 12 months apart, and have by the end of by December 2024 to expend the money.
Okay.
So.
And there's different buckets, right? So transportation and infrastructure, and so there's a lot there.
The city piece isn't part of the infrastructure piece, so we may get money from it. I don't know.
So yeah, the infrastructure piece is separate, but I'm beginning to hear some word about being able to spend it on sewer, water, infrastructure projects. So I don't know what strings attached to that, but it seems like it's everything under the first act that you can spend on, plus a few other items that they're tacking on. So we should have some flexibility, but we're going to need to justify it one way or the other.
I'm sure that the League of California Cities is digging deep into this and going to help us out with guidance on how to create the justifications needed. I'll be very interested in seeing what comes out of it. So thank you very much. I know you guys will be working hard on that.
All right. So thank you. I think, I'm looking forward to that same package passing and seeing how we can get advantage, take advantage of some of the buckets that we'll be able to apply for. Other than that, I think we're good. I don't have any comments. I'm very excited about the ADU blueprint. I think that's really encouraging people. And, Stephen, once we have it, we should advertise the hell out of it approved on social media, because I think it's one of those things which people are always asking, how do we accelerate this process? And I think it'll encourage people to build it. And I want to tie that back to some of our housing requirements, which these ADUs can fulfill. So very excited about that.
Yeah, there was an ADU built literally next door to me. It's L-shaped, so I doubt that these standard plans any of them will include an L-shaped ADU, but that was what the homeowner next door had available, and so that's what he built, was an L-shaped ADU. About 700 square feet. He's renting it for $2,500 a month.
Well, my son I keep telling him he should just plop something in the backyard. He's a 23-year-old young professional. I said, this should be your first home. Just put an ADU in the backyard and start from there. So yeah, I think this will be great. Well, thank you so much. I don't have any other comments. Are we then adjourned?
Yep.
Till our next meeting, April 26th?
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good one, everybody.
All right. Thank you.